welcome back to the PMoP podcast. I'm excited to talk to you guys about something kind of near and dear to my heart, something that was founded out of passion, and the whole process of creating this has been a very enjoyable and creatively fulfilling experience for me. And I think there's been some lessons learned along the way, so hopefully it brings you guys a lot of value. So for those who don't know who I am or just tuning in for the first time to the podcast, my name is Mitch. I founded and started a production company called PMoP back in 2021. We're here just wrapping up year 4 as a business, coming in on over $2 million of revenue for the year. And we've been able to work with some of the largest brands in the country, such as Jordan, Dime, Sephora, Utah Jazz, DJI, and other amazing brands. And it has been such an amazing ride being able to help with these campaigns from both the creative and ideation process all the way to producing and editing, and now even a little bit of distributing those projects. So it has been such a blast working with all of these different brands in building those things out for them. And I've been able to learn a lot along the way. And so having this kind of production company and agency has been a lot of fun, but there was always something missing. I always felt like I was spending all of my time building somebody else's brands. I was always leveraging my talents, my creativity, my taste, and our team's time and effort into honestly selling more of these products, building stronger communities, and just blowing up these brands. And while yes, that is very fun, I always wanted to do that for myself, for something that I truly believed in. And I think over the last few years, we've been able to do that with PMoP in and of itself. We are a production company that has a strong community of creatives. We've been able to host events. We've been able to sell apparel. We've been able to create an online community through our YouTube channel, through our podcast, that people are able to come, ask questions, get together, and feel like this is a space and we are people that they can come to and ask questions. How do I charge for my work? How do I come up with better concepts? How do I pull off productions? And we're just kind of pulling back the curtain for how we've done that. And what's been fun about that whole process is we're not just an agency, we're not just a production company. We look and feel like a brand. And that has been very intentional, from the messaging that we've done through the actual designing of the brand, the website, our social content, everything we do. It's intentional with creating a community and creating a brand. Now, that being said, PMoP is built off of creating digital products and videos and things for other people. So at some point, it's a little hard for people to ultimately connect to us. And so I've always wanted something physical. I've always wanted to have my own clothing brand. I've always wanted to have something that I could shoot campaigns for, I could do some storytelling for. But with PMoP, I always felt a little limited because obviously our goal is to shine the light back on the brands that we work with and help bring attention to them rather than us. We're facilitating that attention for them. We're the guide. And so in the back of my mind, that was always there. And I've talked about this before, but about a year and a half ago, I was kind of hitting this point in my life where my health was at an all-time low. My cognitive functions, where I was so foggy-minded all the time. I didn't feel creative. I was heavily overweight. I wasn't physically active at all, and just low energy levels in general. And so I felt like I need to start changing something. And I wanted to start running. And so I started getting outside and I started going on just like a quick 1 mile run. Not a quick 1 mile run, actually. It was anything but quite slow, actually. But in the process of getting out there and doing that semi-regularly, I started falling in love with the sport. And then this idea of what if I could take this new passion that I'm finding and help solidify that and making it part of my identity and actually creating a brand around it. And that's where DEADLAST was able to come about. And I've been able to bring in some incredible partners, Lucas and Wes. They're out there in Greenville, South Carolina, incredible creatives, incredible entrepreneurs. I love partnering with them on this brand. I also brought in the team at PMoP. Now, PMoP actually owns a significant portion of DEADLAST. And what's fun about that is, one, I get to scheme with Mike. I get to talk with other team members like Danny and Mitch and Taylor and Elise and Grayson and all the whole squad about how can we put DEADLAST on the map. And that's been a lot of fun because our team at PMoP is ultimately responsible for the campaigns, the launches, the content for DEADLAST and kind of the visual identity and brand. Now, the guys in Greenville also do a lot of that, but for the larger campaigns, that's kind of our forte and that's what we do. So I wanted to talk to you guys about kind of what we do from concept and ideation to scripting, to producing, to editing, and then ultimately distributing these campaigns that we're building out to launch our brand and to launch these different collections. Now, this Friday, by the time this podcast comes out, it'll have just dropped, but we are launching our summer collection. The title of the campaign is called Till the Wheels Fall Off. And that was a concept actually come up with our guys out in Greenville, and they kind of came up with this rough concept. And then from there, our team was able to build on it. So wanted to talk to you guys through what we've done for it and our approach to it. So step number one is the concept and ideation phase. Now for us, every campaign needs to start with a feeling. What do you want people to take away from either the piece that you did, the collection of pieces, the content, whatever? What is the feeling you want them to take away from that campaign? And for us, it was this feeling of grit, this kind of relentless pursuit in trying to become better, no matter where you're at, because for me, somebody who's maybe a slower runner versus somebody who's much more of an elite runner, that is going to look different, but hopefully the effort level is the same. And so we wanted that feeling of people out there putting in the work and trying to become a better version of themselves. But we wanted to do it in a way that wasn't taking ourselves too seriously. When we dropped our first campaign, it was very high energy. It was beautiful and we loved it, but we felt like we were missing some of the personality of the brand, and it felt a little more elitist than ultimately we wanted our message to be. We wanted it to be something where no matter where you're at, we all start dead last, but it doesn't mean we need to finish there. That's where we start. Let's figure out how we can progress forward together. And so in this campaign, we wanted it to feel conversational. We wanted it to feel relatable. We wanted it to feel very human. And so we thought, how can we have little conversations, whether it's with talking to themselves, whether that's with talking or communicating with somebody else that they're training with or running with, to have these relatable moments in a way that will make a runner nod and smile, that kind of romanticizes this grind and this process that all runners have to go through. So the lens of that feeling is ultimately what we built everything out from. That was the starting point for us. So once we identified the feeling, we moved on to phase 2 of building out this campaign, which was actually scripting. Let's put that feeling into words, into particular scenarios, and see how we can then eventually bring that personality to life. So we came up with 3 different scripts and 3 different kind of scenarios. One is 2 guys running at a track. They finish their little 2-mile workout. They're exhausted. They're sitting off to the side. And as they're having a conversation, they see this guy continually running around the track. And they kind of have this conversation back and forth. Finally, they turn, they're like, okay, how far is this guy going to go? And that's where the till the wheels fall off kind of concept comes in. We then shot another video where it's a guy trail running and he's going mile after mile until finally his watch dies. And it was asking like, how far are you going to go? And then he just throws his watch down. He's like, and then the title comes up, Till the Wheels Fall Off. And then actually tonight we're shooting the third and final piece for this campaign, which is a couple of guys are out running. They get back to their house, they're grabbing drinks and they're waiting for somebody. And eventually they see their buddy who is tired, who's obviously not regularly running, showing up sweaty, exhausted, and congratulating him for running till the wheels fall off. So those were kind of the concepts. And again, we made them conversational. We made them real life, human-centric situations. We wanted it to feel relatable. And again, that's part of the romanticizing of brand. And because I feel like too many things are far too like aspirational. They feel so out of reach, so premium, so crazy. Only the elite athletes, only the highest level of technology and graphics and things like that. And I'm feeling like storytelling and human-centric conversations and visuals and wit is hard to come by, especially in advertising. So when a brand is able to do that with some self-awareness, with some storytelling that kind of pulls you in, I think it performs extremely well. So that was the assumption, at least. So we wrote out these scripts, and I had a really good time working on them with Mitch Winter. Lucas and Wes from South Carolina also chimed in and gave direction and stuff, but we ended up landing on some scripts we were really excited about. And that led to step 3, which is producing, essentially just making it happen. And now here's the thing about owning your own brand and trying to pull off your own campaigns, especially for an early startup kind of a business, is you do not have a budget. You cannot work with large budget. You can't expect a big crew, and you're probably going to be working in short timelines. And that's exactly what we did for this campaign. We shot each of these 3 pieces in 2 hours or less. And it was just a crew of 2, 3, maybe 4 of us at max. Somebody directing, somebody running the camera, and then usually somebody on audio, and then somebody else picks up a camera and for photos and just ripping a few shots. So we called in favors, right? The talent, they weren't proper talent. They are friends. They are people that we've connected with online who we were just trading product with, because at this point in our business, we are still so early that we can't properly pay talent. And that's just the reality of where we're at. But what I think is so fun about this is, although we had little to no budget, we had unlimited creative freedom, right? What can we pull off? How can we tell the story? We have no clients. We have no expectations. We are just going and shooting and telling a story that's fun for us. It's 100% something that we're interested in and we're enjoying making. We don't have any set number of deliverables. We don't have all these like weird expectations or creative constraints. We are establishing a brand. We are creating a tone and a voice all in and of ourselves. And that is probably one of the most enjoyable parts of producing our own content. So if you do not take time for passion projects or doing things for yourself, I genuinely think you are missing out on some of the greatest lessons you can learn, because now you're able to separate what is it that the client wants and what is it that I actually think will work? What is it that I actually think will perform well and will resonate with people? And we're not having to appeal to a board. We're not having to appeal to, customer data or the people who run their ads. This is purely based off of what do we think will connect with our community. Doesn't ultimately need to lead to sales, although that's important. It's about building the brand and establishing what our message and our ethos and the purpose of what we're doing is. And that is probably the most enjoyable part of this. So we were able to work with some awesome people, shoot some stuff, and it just felt so casual, so enjoyable on set. We were able to laugh, kind of come up with things on the spot, come up with new jokes, come up with new ways of approaching it, different angles, shots, all that stuff. It was just overall such an enjoyable, low pressure experience while still making something that ultimately I feel like we're really proud of. Now, step number 4 is the edit, right? This is where the heartbeat of the whole piece really becomes obvious. We wanted each of these pieces to kind of feel like what a run might feel like. It's a burst of speed and energy, and then it's slowing down, taking time to breathe and recover, and then continuing on. But doing it again in a way that's relatable and fun. And so being able to work with Jason, who was our editor on this project, was a lot of fun. And he was probably sick of me sitting over his shoulder, but it was crazy. He put together this first rough cut of it, and I'd sit over his shoulder for 20, 30 minutes, and we just take something that was like 90 seconds long, and we refined it all the way down to like 40 seconds. And then we did the same thing with our other piece. And I'm sure we will do it for the next one. But that collaboration of saying, okay, what's fluff and what's actually adding to the story? What is helping me connect with our audience and connect with this piece? And where are you starting to lose me a little bit? And those were moments that we didn't have a set timeline for this. It didn't have to be under 60 seconds. It didn't have to be any certain dimensions. It was whatever we wanted. So we were able to pull in Nick to do some graphics. We were able to play with some black and whites, with some super wide angles, to people delivering funny lines. And we were able to kind of just be creative with it. And that was fun. And again, it was so enjoyable because it was for us. But the intention behind all of this and behind all of our edits always went back to the main goal of human-centric storytelling, real relatable moments that people could connect with, and romanticizes the feeling of running. And I don't want to count my eggs before they hatch, but I kind of think we did accomplish that in the edit. So great job on those, Jason. All right. And then number 5 is the final checkbox of distribution. How are we going to launch this campaign? What was the intention behind all of this? What's the rollout look like? Now, up until this week, we posted some stories. I shared when I was wearing one of our shirts, which I'm repping right now. our other founders and different individuals were sharing about DEADLAST, using the gear on runs, things like that. So people could tell that there was new gear coming and they were excited about it. And then I think it was Friday last week, so a week from launch, we posted and just said, till the wheels fall off, coming next week. And that was it. And then on Monday, yesterday, we dropped our first video, which was the track workout. And it got a huge response, a ton of love. I actually had Ben, who is the co-founder at Roan, which is an incredible brand that I look up to a lot, who said, hey, I had in my program that I needed to go for a run today and I was just not feeling it. I wasn't going to do it. And then I opened Instagram, I saw the video, and it made me get out there and run, which is quite the feat. So well done, guys. And that's exactly the type of feeling we wanted. We wanted to romanticize this, and we wanted to make something that made people take action. Yes, if they buy their stuff and that's the action they take, that's cool. But it was more about the love of the game, the love of running. And obviously people were able to feel that, which was really, really fun. From there, we also today posted a kind of like just a carousel of images from the track piece that we did. Again, kind of reinforcing the till the wheels fall off. We also have done email signups where we're letting people know, hey, if you sign up for our email list, you're going to get early access to our drop, which is going to be, I think, 8 hours before we release it publicly. So this Friday, which again, by the time this podcast is shared, it's probably already going to be live. But August 15th is when at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when we're going to be launching. But for those who have signed up for our email list, the faithful, the people who've always been there for us, they're going to get access 8 hours before. So we're really excited about this. This, again, was strategic. It was thought out. And obviously, there's a whole myriad of other things we have to do to make this campaign work. We have to count the inventory. We have to make sure everything's accurate. We have to update it all on Shopify. The guys in South Carolina are going to have to take e-com website photos, with modeling the product, showing it. We have to create banner videos for the website. And we're having to make this really feel like across the board, this campaign is a living and breathing thing. Now, this is kind of a smaller drop for us, kind of towards the end of the summer. But what was so fun about this was experimenting, seeing how it works out and performs, which in our next podcast or in our, upcoming YouTube videos, you'll probably see us talking a little bit about how well it went. But we're really going to be gearing up to doing this again for our fall collection, which is where we're really getting some high performance materials, shirts. We're getting shorts, more half tights, different things like that that are actually more built for running. So this is kind of the warm up for us. We're going to see how this all goes, and this is all going to inform what we do for our next campaign. So again, this is something I'm so passionate about. I enjoy. I'm sorry, I was rambling a little bit, but it's something I could talk about for days because, again, being an agency owner, a production company owner, and always dealing with digital products and assets is super fun and fulfilling. But every once in a while, when you're able to work with something physical that's yours and you're able to help bring that story and that feeling to life, not just in the assets that we create, but the experiences where you're going to be able to have, the events we're going to put on, the website we're creating, just all of that stuff, being able to see people in person wearing your stuff that you don't even know is such a cool feeling. And that's kind of what we're pursuing, building something bigger than just ourselves and just an online presence. So that has been really enjoyable. But hopefully that gave you guys a little bit of an insight into our process, that kind of 5-step process for how we approach building out a campaign for ourselves. And this is something similar that we do, those 5 kind of sections or notes. That's something we do every single production for ourselves. And it's a little bit more complicated sometimes for our clients because there's back and forth, there's revisions, there's feedback, there's different stages. But for ourselves, we always start with concept and ideation. We move on to scripting and really shot listing, refining all of that. We go into actually producing and shooting the whole piece, editing, and then finally, how are we going to distribute it so people can see it and experience it like we want them to. And that has been such an enjoyable process. And when you're able to look at a video or a piece that you're creating with intention from start to finish, the end product is going to be so much better. Don't spend your time just creating a video to create a video. Think about, what do you want people to feel? What do you want them to take away from it? And then how do I make it? Yes, but then how do I get it in front of the right people? How do I make sure they experience it the way that I would hope they would get to experience it? So with that, that's kind of the story. That's the spiel today. Hope you guys enjoyed kind of breaking down that process, what it's been looking like for us. I'm really excited for our next episode. I'm going to talk a little bit about where Film Lab's at, some of the experience we've been having, the lessons learned along the way. So thank you guys so much for supporting our podcast, our YouTube, our business as a whole. It means the world. So that's a wrap on this episode of the PMoP podcast. I'll see you guys in the next one.